Hello, Grey County readers. I'm bringing you a special guest this month. She's not part of the Grey County Reads Competition 2021. She is our featured book this year. I'm talking about Bonita Johnson DeMatteis and her book, From Black-Eyed Peas and Races. Bonnie's kind of a household name around these parts. But for those of you in the rest of the world, hello, Australia. Let me just fill you in a bit about her. So Bonnie, you sit tight while I tell people how wonderful you are. She's the artist and the designer of the Black History Cairn. She's an author of Going North, story about the Underground Railroad, and Threads, fascinating book about the hidden messages in quilts. And also, Lest We Forget, which she received the Ontario Museum Association Award of Merit for writing and design. And she's a registered psychotherapist specializing in trauma therapy. And she's a Zumba instructor at Dixon Dance and Fitness. And she can ride a horse. And she wrote Black-Eyed Peas and Races, which she has kindly agreed to talk to us about. So, Bonnie.
Hello.
Welcome. This is a real treat having you here.
Oh my gosh, that was so cool. That was funny. That was like, yeah, I did all those things, and wow, to have it kind of pushed together like that is kind of like, wow.
And the list goes on. I only mentioned a few of them. This book, this moving book, Black-Eyed Peas and Races, I think you better start by telling us how you chose that title. It kind of explains a lot of what's in the book.
Well, Black-Eyed Peas and rice is a very fundamental, fun meal that most of our families know how to make. And I had I have a million amazing aunts, but we had one aunt in particular, Aunt Estelle, and her recipe was like the best. If you got to the picnic, if you got to the festival, we called it the picnic before it officially became festival. If you got there, it didn't matter where you were in the world. You could trundle down on Civic Saturday, Civic Weekend holiday, and trundle down to Harrison Park, and go under the pavilion, and didn't matter if you were broke or anything. If you just got there, you would get a meal, you'd get hugs and kisses, and you'd get, so how are things, and it was just like, that was one day of the year, guaranteed, you'd walk away too full, maybe a little bit, too much drinky also, cool. Which was often kind of fun because that was done at a certain section under the pavilion. People, disguise their drinkies because the picnic or the Emancipation Festival originally started as a church function.
And we're talking about 1962 it started. So you're referring to?
Oh, no. It started a long time before that. That 1962
yes, it did. At Harrison Park, yeah?
Yes, and I believe it happened in different locations. Like there was like a Collingwood branch. There was, I think it was down in Kelso.
I didn't know that.
It just kind of settled into the Harrison Park area because it was fun to get to, and there was the river. There, park things for the kids to play on. There was the restaurant there before it burnt down, and now it's been rebuilt. And, so it was just great parking, camping. A lot of the folks like to come up and camp. It was just a great weekend of reconnect.
But its origin, it's basically part of the annual Emancipation Festival.
Yes.
Which celebrates the British Imperial Act of 1834, which abolished slavery throughout the British Empire only.
Yes.
And this book, man, it's loaded with historical context. You got passages from other books. You got public records. You got photos from the picnics from the 60s to the present.
Yeah.
You got some heartwarming memories on your memory page. And you got some great recipes. More on the recipes later. So, Bonnie, this extraordinary undertaking, it's an incredible amount of research. So how did you take all the components that are in this book and meld them into such a beautiful story? Did this take a long time? Did you had help with stories?
Well, I think it started a long time ago.
Before your involvement?
Well, no, I think the very first germ of it, for my mind, was about 1998, 97, when we were down enjoying the festival day, the picnic day, and we started looking around. I don't know if it's because we were getting older, because we were the kids, right? So now we're adults, we have had kids, and now we're seeing another wave of children come to this event. And we're going, we don't know who these kids are. Who belongs to who? So we started, planning family trees. My cousin Cheryl Hansler, she has that amazing family tree genealogical map that she's laid out, and she's added to for years. So when the people start arriving down at the picnic grounds, as it was called, they immediately go up to this huge map and they start pointing. Well, that's my grandmother. That's your grandmother? That was my grandmother. No way. And people who, far flung from the East Coast to the West Coast, they'll come in and go and make these connections. So there was gatherings like that. There was the historic church piece that we just kind of went in to some archives and pulled them out. There was a lot of material laying all over the place. And with the help of an insight and push from Marianne Thomas from the Ginger Press, like she just funneled all the stuff. She said, just bring it, and we'll funnel it in and cut and paste it and make it have some sort of chronological sense.
Cool. So she more or less acted as a publisher as well.
Oh, for sure. She brought it all together.
Organizing the book.
Yeah. And I was very nervous to do it because this isn't just my story. This is a collection of people's stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I think on the cover it says collected by, not written by. Because because I didn't want the responsibility of getting something wrong. I'm a big scaredy cat when it comes to that other people's stories. I don't want to mess them up or not get it right.
Yeah,
so,
I noticed.
I do.
I saw a few disclaimers in the introduction.
Yeah,
it's very cute.
So, but I just wanted to bring it together because it hadn't been done before. And we're losing time. Yeah. The world's moving really fast. So it was just like taking a picture, snap, right then and there. That's what it was for me in my 62, 72, 82, 92, 2002, all those years.
Right.
These are things, recollections that I know meant so much to me and my immediate family and the generations before us, stories that we had been told. So I just wanted to freeze frame it as it was. And I welcome anybody else to add to it, in 20 years from now, like some of these little folks that are in the back of the book, a lot of them are adults right now in publishing, in broadcasting. And so I would love for them to hand off the
torch, as it were.
Yeah. This isn't a finished story, and it will evolve. It will change.
Yeah, I was interested to hear you say earlier that people from the West Coast and from Nova Scotia came and found members of their family on this family tree.
And some from the States as well.
Wow.
When we unveiled the cairn, there was a young woman from Alabama. Boom. Right in the heat of the whole mess, right? And she stood at one of the squares on the quilt floor. And it was the square of the monkey's wrench, or the toolbox, it's called.
Toolbox, yeah.
And the lore is, you know, we'll just say Harriet Tubman would say, we're leaving tonight. You know, if you see this symbol, get your things together. We're leaving tonight. And that was in the deep South. And so the young woman stood there and she started to cry. There's been a lot of tears around the cairn. Says, this starts where I was born. So we all looked at her. And so people were spontaneously telling their stories.
Oh my.
And it's a hushed place too. Like I'm surprised at how many people, I'll go down to the park and I'll see them just kind of sitting around, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a lovely space. And and one other story I've got to say is that I remember sitting down there, as I often do, and there was a little girl running through the park with her grandmother. And the grandma said, now be careful, don't fall, blah, blah, blah. The cairn, you can climb on it. You know, you can.
Yes. You're allowed to, are you? Yeah,
yes,
cool.
Absolutely. And we didn't want it to become like a regulated play apparatus because too many rules around that. This is just, you can sit on it and climb it. So the little girl runs up to it and she goes, Grandma, what used to be here? So it just crystallized in my brain, like that was a big handshake to me from the universe.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to look like a ruin. Like yeah, because so much in the Black history, in the community has all been decimated.
Yeah.
Very price-filled.
I'm getting that from parts of the book. Just to read some of the passages that really got to me, you said that some evidence was just not to be had. Sadly, this is a reflection of a time when quiet, unobtrusive self-preservation was the order of the day in Black communities. And then you said that Stephanie McMullen's stories were laced in pain.
Yes.
This must have been a somewhat emotional journey for you, collecting this stuff together.
Yeah, that's very fair. It was. And to have people in the community, like Stephanie McMullen was with Grey Roots before they moved. And so her history, like, and I think I explained in the book, I know this, she would come to my aunt's home and time again, just sitting with tea and cookies. And, you know, they weren't going to trust her right out of the gate.
Right.
But they did. They just figured, well, she's the vehicle to hand our information over and archive it.
Right.
We must do that. And so there was a wonderful relationship there that happened there of trust. And that's really indicative of the whole journey, the handshake between Black and white coming to this time, and that it needs be. Like,
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to take a minute to encourage people to read Stephanie McMullen's book. It's called From Slavery to Freedom, African Canadians in Grey County. It's a fascinating read. So I just wanted to drop that in.
Thank you.
But back to your book, your photographs, your choice of photographs are really interesting to me because everybody in them is hugging or smiling. It's all about love and embrace. And it sort of struck me about halfway through. There may be like a couple of the rigid old poses of yesteryear, but everybody else is in love with each other. That part was very moving to see. I like that.
I'm glad you picked that up. Yeah, because it's a time when people can get together and they don't have to be looking over their shoulder or worried about getting profiled, worried about, like, it truly is a coming home sense. And so one of the bylines on the title is it's a love story. So
it looks like a love story and it reads like one too. God, there's so much in this. And you were the first Emancipation Day picnic, 1862. And by 1872, the Black population of Owen Sound, it says, was over 10% of the city's population. So I'm going to assume that there must be a ton of descendants coming to the picnic every year from around this area as well,
Yes,
as from far away.
there are. It's quite the gathering. Like, oh, everybody was bummed out this last year. I'll tell you, it was like, we can't gather.
Yeah.
What do you mean? So even
Well,
my brother, he made it up from Toronto, and he called me, he says, well, we're in the park. So I sneaked down to the park, put my mask on, and we stood 6 feet apart from each other, kind of looking at each other. And he bought a bucket of chicken and a beer. So that was our picnic last year, but people will always come, you know.
yeah. Better than nothing this year. Next year, it'll be fine. So then the other thing, you got some very moving stuff in here. These pages that are called memories dotted throughout the book. I mean, where the people are sharing the memories of the picnics of the past and everything, but some of them are real tear jerkers. And I imagine there must have been a lot of them. How did you have any trouble arriving at the decisions of which voices you were going to put in there? Are they still coming? Is there an ongoing aspect to these memories?
No, but that's just a minute, I gotta make a note here. That's a really good suggestion for the next volume. I
love them.
I put it out on Facebook. I put it out on email. I put it out everywhere. And I've just, and I started like a year, maybe 2 years before that, where I took my little iPhone, boop, went down there, and I said, what's your best memory of the picnic? And then a lot of it I recorded on my voice clips, and then
you transcribe them.
Yeah. And then, but a lot of the other stuff came in just through emails, and I, just send them off over to Mary Ann, and she'd edit them, made sure it was grammatically correct,
Oh, that's great.
Keeping the emphasis, keeping the language that needed to be given who was speaking it. So that would be about a 2-year earnest effort about, logging it and keeping the comments. And then there was a big flurry right at the end. I said, okay, last call.
Yeah.
Book's coming out, last call. So
yeah, so you were a couple of years in the collecting of this stuff, were you? Sounds like.
Yes.
Wow.
And the name, I forgot to mention, like black-eyed peas and rice.
Yes.
Is the dish. But the other component that, as you probably have read in the book, is the big deal if you were a kid was the races.
Yeah.
So black-eyed peas and races. So the races was you are muscling against your cousins. You're going to see who's the fastest, right? And so that was the big topper, whoever won the prize that day, everybody won.
Again, that comes through in the photos. It's joy. It's a wonderful feeling of happy competition. Man, those photos are something else. We got to get to you because you designed the cairn, and it is in your book, so it's all fair. But I'd like people to know that the cairn didn't begin with the cairn. The cairn began with Negro Creek Road. Yeah. And how you had to fight to keep that name because some guy wanted to put a bottled water plant on his property there. And am I right? It evolved from this fight you had to keep the name of Negro Creek Road.
It definitely did. That I think was my boom, my ignition. Because I saw too easily how things can be just taken down and changed. If nobody had known the history of it, and thankfully from Collingwood, the Sheffield family, to Owen Sound people, it came to my mind, it came to my presence visually when a coworker of mine, I used to work at the Women's Center.
Right.
And she brought up this Toronto Star, and she slaps it down the table. She says, so what do you think of that? And I read it and I says, I don't think very much about it. So I got home and I phoned the Reeve at the time. And I said, this, like, basically, who do you think you are?
Right.
Much younger and not so diplomatic. And I don't know if I'm very diplomatic now, but I just, who do you think you are? Like, this is a race. This is like people, like who, well, I talked to the neighbors and they said they didn't like it much. So we thought we'd change it. The we turned out to be three guys.
Ah.
They offered to have a meeting in their kitchen. So we went. My Aunt Beatrice, who's a great documentary,
Right.
little tape recorders, little cassettes. And as soon as the meeting starts, she pressed play. She has it all on tape, or had it.
Cool.
I don't know where the tape is now, but we transcribed it.
Right.
And we had Carolyn Sheffield. We had her aunt and her uncle Howard. We had, I forget the first names, but Millers, who were descended from Black loyalists. They came to the table. The Reeve, two of the neighbors came. My sister was there. I was there. And we had a letter from Lincoln Alexander there.
Yeah, cool. That was
The
it.
ombudsman, it was like, so we were loaded. We sat in this man's kitchen and he says, well, thanks for, your interest. And he said, you know what you people should do? You should get some rocks, like a cairn, and put it on the side of the road on Highway 6 to commemorate the fact that this used to be Negro Creek Road. And I said, I think that's a really good idea. So we're going to do that, and you're going to put the sign back. Like I said, I was a little mouthy.
Cool.
I had no idea they were going to put the sign back. Like, you just say stuff and say, do it, and you hope that they do. But I guess the powers that be compelled them, that the legacy was entrenched long before Moggy, the Moggy settlement, which was a Scottish settlement, which,
Right.
They were there, but they weren't there early enough. They weren't there long enough.
Right.
So
To lay any
my
claim to it.
grandfather came from Negro Creek Road, that settlement out there.
Is that right?
So when that changed, and then there was council member, he has since gone on, Peter Lemon. He came to my door one day and said, you don't exist. Oh, good, you're home. He says, I didn't know if you existed. And I said, what are you talking about? He was at a meeting, I guess, when cultural capitals.
Yeah.
And Trillium, somehow it was perfect storm, all came together. We had funding here in Owen Sound to recognize historic communities. So he brought that up, that he felt something should be created to commemorate the Black history in Owen Sound and area. And to which a woman, I never met her. I think she was new to the area. She said, well, there's no Black people here. So that was Peter's ignition. So
Right.
we got to do something. So ad hoc committee was struck through City Hall. So this amazing committee of people, Ann Kelly, Terry Jackson, I'm going to forget some people. Sorry.
That's okay. They know who they are.
They
And
sure
you're
do.
telling the world.
So we hashed this out for about a year. And the first idea was to get some rocks from Africa.
Yeah.
Coast of Africa, where the slaves were. Sorry, I'm going to correct that. They weren't slaves. They were
They were
inhabitants.
abducted family people. Yeah.
And brought over and made slaves.
Right.
So we go through the slave islands, south, north slaves, just all that whole route, and collect rocks up through Canada, Niagara Falls, on up here to Old Town, and
Cool.
build these rocks into some sort of structure. The structure hadn't come to anyone's mind yet. So.
But it came to you.
Well, yeah, it came to me, right? Because we weren't getting any rocks. We sent letters out all around the world. Now, who's going to FedEx a big old rock?
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't happening. So Terry Jackson said, now remember, we have a lot of rocks here in Owen Sound.
Yeah, from
Limestone.
the quarry.
Yeah, and my great-grandfather, same great-grandfather from Negro Creek Road, he was a little child at the time. He grew up, he's in Owen Sound, he's working at the quarry. He actually died in a detonation accident.
Right. Yeah.
All this rock was quarried to build Black Clawson Kennedy Foundry.
Right.
That had since been demolished. So these rocks are being stored somewhere, I don't know where, but Terry says, I know where there's rocks, and they're historic. Because they were quarried by members of the Black community here. So they were gathered, selected. Some rocks did come. Some rocks were gifted to us. They're not huge, but they're from different parts coming up through the States. That's one of the cornerstones is actually from Ethiopia. That was gifted to us by that. Yeah, and it's a black rock. It's sitting down there on the one corner by the river.
Yeah.
So, okay, I was angry because we couldn't get this all together. And I decided I'm just going ahead and create it. Nobody's, we can't get it together. So with my feeling of the lack of ruins or lack of structure that says that we were here, I made one.
Yeah.
Cornerstone of home and church is what our people were entrenched in. The actual windows are replicas from the Little Zion Church. That was the first Black church here in Owen Sound on the city.
Yes. Yeah. And also where you got a lot of documentation from, am I right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you.
So they came together, my husband and I, we drank some wine, ate a lot of chocolate, and came up with the conceptual drawing that night. And then I took it into City Hall and they okayed it.
Cool.
That was fun.
Oh, that's the good part. You didn't get any resistance from City Hall, and those things
freaky because they were quiet. When I took the blanket off and explained all the components of it, they were quiet.
Huh.
And I thought,
surprised, actually.
Okay, I'm just gonna slink away here, struck out.
Right.
But they were, it was explained to me later that they were astonished.
Yeah.
I like a good astonishment.
Yeah, it would be quite something to just have that unveiled on you. Yeah. It's a pretty powerful piece to see even on these screens. And my particular fascination is with the ceramic tile.
Jim Louis. Yeah.
Geez, there's something else. Because I didn't know anything about the messages sewn into the quilts. That was like a new one on me. Geez, you learn something every day as a pensioner, I tell you.
Well, now I have to say, I have to balance the story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of argument against the symbols, the symbolism in the quilts. Huh. So I just decided to go ahead with it anyway, because so much has been taken. Language, stories, family connections of, who my ancestors were from, where, it's all taken away.
I think that's why it resonates so much, is because it's stories handed down to make it so moving, really.
So there is a book called Hidden in Plain View. Tobiah, I think is her last name. Sorry, I don't remember the first name, but there's a lot that says this did happen. There were signals. There had to be signals. There had to be connections. Like there's ads in the newspaper. Cargo coming in tonight. We need something, something, something. How many men? Who's going to be there at 7 o'clock to unload the cargo?
Wow.
Those were abolitionists. Codes.
Yeah.
You get yourself to the station, there's a family coming in, right? And then they had to hide them. Then, so like I said, the hand in hand, like the conscientious, good souls.
Yeah.
White souls. They had to be in the gate a lot of ways to help get this through.
Yeah.
So that's the part that can never be overlooked. So I embody physically, you know, aspects of my white heritage and my Black heritage. So I have to be true to both of that. I just can't, just go.
Well, it was a part of history that I was completely unfamiliar with, and I like it when stuff like that happens to me, because then I can, carry on and explore it in another way. I don't know if you heard that sound, my dinging going off a little while ago.
I think
my
I did.
phone went off, because much as I'd like to talk all day, I have to get home to take my chicken out of the brine. I got the recipe out of the book, the Cajun, what's it called?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So and then so it's in the brine. I've had it there for about 4 hours, and then I'm gonna mat it, roll it. But
Yep, that's the best excuse ever. That's good. I like that. You got
I'm getting scared about cooking it in the coconut oil part. But
coconut oil is one of the most friendliest fats you can ever work with.
Okay, well, I'm hoping it's all going to work out.
Oh yeah, well, you're gonna, and I
anyway
expect a call and tell us how good it is.
Hey, after one of my mandates after I get vaccinated and my mask comes off is I'm going to throw a huge party, and you're invited, and I'll probably make you make collard greens, because it seems like if I can mess up kale, I can mess up collard greens. So anyway, you come and do that, but I'll do everything else. Bonnie, thanks so much for taking the time with us. It's really a pleasure to meet you, and I just love your book. And I'm glad we got your book as the featured book, because it is certainly it's a happy book, but it's a really moving book as well. And I really thank you for it. It's really great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like you do these things and boop, you send them off, out into the world. And I love your responses. And if that's hit those marks, I'm pleased. I'm pleased.
Hey, and that's just me. There are tons of folks you're never going to meet who love it too. So,
okay.
All right. Take care. Thanks again.